Good morning. Welcome back to Our Neutral Voice that presents a financial pillar. I'm excited to be back with you for our first show of 2024 by introducing a couple new faces to the Financial Pillar show. First, I'd like to introduce Terrence Bush. Right? Terrence is new to the ONV family. Terrence, if you want to talk to the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Ryan. So happy to be here. My name is Terrence Bush. I do work for PNC. Just a little disclaimer, all thoughts and opinions are my own and do not represent PNC in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And while new to the Financial Pillar show, definitely not new to the ONV family, we have J.J. Foster.
Good morning. It's good to be here on the financial side. I'm J.J. Foster with Lake City Bank. I'm a mortgage loan originator. The other part about that, I'm a banker all of 3 years, but I'm 30 years in the human services field. So serving family and children has been a great combination while joining the bank.
Yeah, wow. 3 bankers on the same show. This is going to be real interesting, right? Yeah. So, but today we have a special guest for you, Lisa Givan. Right. I don't want to mess up your title, so I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and introduce yourself and to let the audience know about your titles.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Name is Lisa Givan, so we got that right. My professional titles are 2. I serve as the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Belonging at Indiana Tech here in Fort Wayne. I also serve as the Chief Inclusive Leadership Strategist at LDG Navigators, which is my own consulting firm.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on the show. Sure. I know myself and JJ have had the pleasure of listening to you speak to our respective employers in some consulting fashions,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But one of the things that stood out to me when listening to you speak to us was you talking about mindset and the power of changing your mindset, right? You know, when we speak with our audience and we talk about the different topics, we're always talking about how we need to change our mindset if we want to change our direction in life, right? If we're not happy with the way things go, we're not happy with our financial situations, we need to change our mindset in order to be able to reach the success that we want to, right? Instead of making excuses. But one of the things we don't really do is talk about how we change our mindset, right? Some tips, tricks, and things like that. So that was one of the main things I wanted to have you on the show to kind of, help educate us with that. Sure. So what led you into the path you are now with your consulting business?
So it's really it's a legacy thing for me. My company is named after my father. He was in the Navy, made a lot of sacrifices for me, the youngest of 4 children. And so every presentation I do has some type of influence from my parents. But I think what put me in this space is I started in banking in corporate America many, many years ago. And I've been in higher ed now professionally for about 16 years. But the consulting aspect has been transcended over both. Because even in corporate America, we were at a place where people just really didn't understand how to interact with each other, right? They may come out of college, they may come out of training, and they have the content expertise, but we were lacking some things in engagement and relationship building. And so for me on my leadership journey, I think that's one of the things that has made it a little easier is the power of building relationships and talking to people and connecting. And with that, the company started and we partnered with nonprofits, organizations, schools, banks, because I know that part a little bit. And it just really came out of this need for we need to do better. And to do better, sometimes other people need to show us, right? Like there's some things that you can't get in a classroom. Although as being a former instructor, we would like to think that our classrooms are all encompassing sometimes, but sometimes we're more on content development because that's what people test on than really personal relationships and how we move forward together as a society.
Awesome.
Now before you get off into that,
Sure.
everything that you said, one thing stood out to me. You said diversity, equity, and belonging.
Yes.
When we all know there's diversity, equity, and inclusion is what people typically say. Can you speak to that? And was there an intentionality behind that? Where does that title come from?
There definitely was. So originally when I came to Fort Wayne in 2018, it was as the Associate Vice President of Diversity and Chief Diversity Officer. As the role grew and elevated, I like to be intentional, right? One of the pillars of my company is intentionality. So if we're doing that, we need to not take all the ownership, but to be intentional about how we're creating space for people that are typically otherized, right? Marginalized communities. So being that you can go through the diversity alphabet of the social justice, DEI. So diversity is about data. You have it or you don't. It's a numbers game. And it's really up to the people in power to decide if you have enough people there, if they want to diversify. When you get to equity, again, it's a power game. It's up to the leaders of the organization to decide if they want to be equitable in pay and opportunities. Inclusion. Verna Meyer says it best. She says that it's being invited to the dance, but it's people in power that are doing that. So I've done some work with a colleague of mine, Daniel Jude, and always talking about belonging and getting people to feel as if they belong. And if you feel as if it's yours, if you feel ownership in an organization, a company, a family, anything, you don't need people to invite you. You don't need to worry about that. So it was very intentional of that's what we need to strive for. We need to make people feel valued in that they own a part of the campus community and that they don't necessarily wait for Lisa or someone else to come and do things for them, but that they take an active role in creating space and voice for themselves.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah. So one of the things that stands out to me right now is your shirt. I love your shirt.
Yes.
Mindset is everything. Right. Tell me why that is. Why do you feel that way?
Because it impacts how we do what we do, right? Mm-hmm. From the time we're small, we come up with mindset and how we feel. Like we're culturally programmed to think, believe what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. Even now in such a progressive, and I feel like we're getting more progressive, but when we do gender reveal parties even, right? It's like blue or pink. You don't see anybody bust a balloon and it's yellow that comes down and they're like, what is it? We need to know what it is, right? So, but it's a mindset around, gender and what it is. We have mindsets with around everything that we do. We say how we're built from young ages. So to me, little changes in developing your mindset is how you're going to get to your next, whatever your next is. And if you're not willing to change the mindset, you'll stay stagnant. Mm-hmm. It may not seem, because you might be in a community where everybody's of the same mindset and you feel like you all are just going along, but you're really not going to grow.
Yeah. What do you think one of the main reasons is that people are unwilling to change their mindset?
Because I feel like people don't know any better.
That's what I would agree.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah, sometimes
we don't recognize that we are stuck in a certain mindset and that we even need to change it. Right.
Because a lot of times we're in communities or families or places of employment where everyone's like us. Mm-hmm. So if everyone, if it's the same voices, like your thing says your voice matters, but if it's the same voices, how well are we doing with growing and advancing, right? So I look at things, even I'm a transplant to Fort Wayne, and when I'm doing work outside of the university, I always tell people, I'm like, I need a mixture of people. I need some natives because they know what's going on in the community, right? They have historical knowledge of what's been Fort Wayne. I need some transplants like myself, some people who have come in and seen some things and we're experiencing this because our voice matters as well on how we're experiencing this. But I need some rebounders too. The people who grew up here, left, saw something different, came back, and can give us some impact, right? Because if we have a voice of all natives on a committee, all we're doing is saying we've always been like this. This is a little way that we're all willing to stretch a little bit. We don't know. It's kind of safe, right? There's no bold decision making when all the voices are the same. Mm-hmm. So when you get different mindsets, different experiences, different perspectives, I feel like you get greatness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you're sitting here because your verse, you're hitting mindset of a consumer, but then you got your background and everything you do working with corporate level. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, we focus on, and I know in our production meeting, we talked about mindsets. I think we were thinking more of consumer side as well. Mm-hmm. But can you speak to like organizations and the industry is, stick with banking itself.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you deal with when we're talking about in changing the mindset?
So I think with banking, right, so first I'm going to start with the whole concept of the growth and the fixed mindset, right? A lot of people who will take those and run with it as fixed is bad, and growth is just like this great euphoria of what's the best thing in the world. And first of all, that's not true. you can't be willy-nilly running around with every new idea somebody says and puts in your head. You're like, I'm going to try it. Like it's all rainbows and Skittles. It's not. And especially in banking, you have rules, regulations, compliance, policies. Some things are fixed, and they're not necessarily fixed because that's a fixed mindset. It's fixed because that's the law. That's a compliance issue that we can't mess with. So when you look at the banking industry and financial pillars and things like this, you figure there are some things that it just is what it is, as people would say. But there are other things that we can use innovation to work around that. There are, when we're looking at our consumer base, and a lot of times, when I talk to people, they'll say, we need to diversify our customer base. And it's like, but what's your communities look like? Right? Like when 2020 hit, everybody I was very popular then, right, in 2021. And it was like, we want to do this. And it's like, how are you going to grow your employee base and increase it when you're in a community that's like 2% people of color, but now you want 17% of your employees? Are you willing to fly people in and bring them in? And so I think we need to be realistic. One, you're looking at employees, or you're looking at consumers. What do your employees represent? Because a lot of times with marginalized communities, we're looking for somebody who looks like us, right? Some of us, that's just where we feel comfortable. It's automatically. You don't really see a white person go into a room full of black people. They're looking for someone who they're uncomfortable, right? So a lot of us, when we come into banking and we don't know about it, we may speak a different language. Like we have a lot of Burmese community here. We might speak a different language. We might be different abled, and we're looking for something like us, and banks don't have it, right? If you're a bank and you don't have anybody in a wheelchair and I'm coming in trying to navigate, do you understand how difficult it could be for me to get to your space, even though you're saying, well, by laws, we're ADA compliant for wheelchair accessible. But in reality, are you, right? Is it welcoming? Am I going to get treated differently? Is there a place for me to wait? So I think when you're looking at consumers, you have to first look at your employees, because somebody's got to be able to talk that talk. And if you don't have the race and ethnicity diversity, then you need to get some inclusive leadership practices with the people you do have who are able to build relationships with that. Because money is a pride and joy of most people, right? I mean, I'm not going to give you my money if I don't trust you. If I don't feel comfortable with you, I'll pay more money and go to the payroll place or the pay cashing place down the street and give them 7 or 8%, because somehow I can justify that more than walking into a bank dealing with a teller who may not be culturally sensitive.
Because that's what they're comfortable
yes.
with. Yeah.
But you hit on some points there. How do you address that consumer or those marginalized communities that have entered these establishments, that fear, that trepidation of, I know they're going to say no, that mindset, why would I do it? It's just going to be the
negative
same
mindset. That negative mindset.
Yeah.
I think the smart thing is to understand where you are and work partnerships. We partner all the time with people. Professionally, if I need something, I'm going to go reach out to somebody who may have it, and I'm going to partner with them. When we're looking at banks and financial institutions, if we are looking to service and build better relationships with marginalized communities, Fort Wayne is a city of churches, right? I'm telling you, get with some churches. If nothing else, when I first moved here, I was like, oh my gosh, I will not have a problem finding a place to worship, right? Because they are. Look at some of the community organizations. Partner with them, because sometimes it's the buy-in, the transferable buy-in. So you may know somebody. I know you, but I need to get to them. So I might need to use my connection with you, because if you say Lisa's a good person and you can trust her, they trust you, so then they'll hand off to me. We do comparable stuff in education. I've had students come to me and say, this professor, I don't get along with them. And some professors, I'm like, let me fix that. Let me anoint you the good person and get this student and build a relationship. But honestly, there are other people where I'm like, they don't treat me nice. So I can imagine what a student is getting if I'm getting this as a VP. So I'm more siding with the student, let me handle you here. But if you can get those relationships and make those connections, go to churches, go to social service agencies, go to schools. You have to be where people are. They're not just going to miraculously walk into you if I don't have a lot of money and I don't have this and I'm not, I'm trying to figure out what mobile banking app is and I'm trying to go through all these fintech things with transferring money. I'm not necessarily going to walk into you and expect you to educate me if I don't have a relationship. If no one's told me this is the person you need to talk to, this is where you need to go and do this. I'm going to sit around like they don't care about me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have to hustle and do what I need to do with my money to make it work. But it's the person in power. Like we have the power.
So here's a mindset for that. What you were just talking to
Sure.
about putting yourself in those situations to meet people, make those contacts. Is the individual that says, "Well, that's just really not me. It's not my personality." Mm-hmm. Right? The mindset they have there. What would you say to that?
I think it is. I would challenge that, because if there was something else that you wanted, that you personally wanted, if someone told you your child needs this surgery and you have to go talk to this medical team and make a case for your child against somebody else's child, you would be in there making the case. And it's not your personality to public speak, and it's not your personality to get in there. They're all educated and you're not. You would learn how to adapt to get what you want. So for me, it's how bad do you want it?
Absolutely. And you just spoke to me to the T.
Yeah.
5 years ago, maybe, right? Because I'm not networking. I'm better one-on-one in person. But going into an event where there's 200 people there, that's not my area. But it's just my comfort zone, right? Put yourself in those comfort zones. Take that mindset away, the negative mindset that it's just not me. It's not my personality. Understand it. It's what you need to do. It's what you have to do if you want to get to a certain place, right? Get over that mindset that it's not you. Put yourself in those uncomfortable positions, and it will become you.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. And a lot of times we say, to whom much is given, much is required, right? In a leadership role, I know there are plenty of times, like just over this holiday break, I really needed to be off the grid because I feel like I am on all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time. And so I needed to go somewhere and have matching pajamas like, 14 family members and just sit there and just laugh about goofy things, because I was like, every time I'm out, there's an expectation of me with something because of my titles or insight or education, which I'm not going to trade. But there are times when it's like, I need to step out of that. Mm-hmm. So when you ask for things and you want to do things, practice self-care. That's a mindset too, right? Mm-hmm. That I don't need that. I don't have time for that. I have time for it. Because I can't pour if I'm on empty. Mm-hmm. So if watching Monk, my mother watches Monk, she's 86, watching Monk, because that's what my mom watched when she quarantined with me, makes me feel good and have happy memories, then I'm going to take 2 hours to do that. And then I can pop back on and, do things like this. And it's like,
absolutely,
I can keep going.
Yeah. We're different people in our professional lives than we are in our personal lives, right? I talk to people all day long. I'm a different person at work. And then when I come home, it's like, last thing I want to do is get on the phone and talk to somebody.
But a lot of times your professional life, you are, right? How many times are you seen and somebody comes up to you once they find out what you do and where you do it at, then you are the expert on everything financial to them. Right. So if you push them to someone else, they trust you. Mm-hmm. But if you start, so it's like, there's so many blurred lines of who we are professionally and personally. That's just who we are. We're all of it.
Yeah. I think one of the other key things with mindset, too, is understanding that our mindset is not somebody else's mindset, right? And what I mean by that is, going into just a personal example for myself is I had applied for a job a few years ago. Mm-hmm. It's the second time I went in for this job that I didn't get the first time. They called me back, a year later. Went in for it, thought I had this job. They walked me around the whole place, showed me everything, was asking me what kind of phone I wanted and all this other stuff. And then that day came for the call and it didn't come, right? Day later it came, and I know what that means. The longer that it goes and you don't get that call, they're offering the job to somebody else, right? They're calling you when somebody else has accepted that job. And, when they called, I clearly was disappointed, but instead of being upset about it, just saying thank you and hang up the phone, I said, okay, would you mind giving me some feedback on what led to your decision? And I appreciate the honesty that they did. And in this situation, the job role, which was a banking role, It consisted of going out, getting involved in the community, non-for-profit organizations, things like that, which I knew that was part of the role. It didn't really fit my life at the time when I had younger kids and I'm
Right.
stuck in a retail environment from 9 to 5 and all this other stuff. So I knew when I get this job, that's part of the role and I'm willing to do it. Their outlook on it was, well, you interviewed for this job a year ago and you knew that that was part of the role that we wanted, but you haven't done anything between then and now to do that, right? That completely switched my mindset on, okay, they wanted me to do this beforehand, not me going into this job role, understanding it's part of the job and I'm willing to do it, right? So I immediately left there and went and called up somebody I worked for at the time and just said, hey, can we go to lunch? I said, you might not want to hear this, but I applied for another job. I didn't get it, but can you talk, because this person was involved with many different things. Like, I cannot let this be the reason I don't ever get a job
Right.
again, right? I had to change my mindset to adapt with their mindset because I wanted something from them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Lisa touched on something big when we're talking relationships. And the reason I throw in my background is because I work for Division of Family and Children, Housing Authority, Urban League, all these places serving all these different families, all these different children. So when they see me around coaching on the sidelines, it's a familiar face, they're comfortable, they come in, they can talk. The question I have for you, I know one of the big things is when we're talking about finances and changing the mindset, how do you deal with somebody, we're talking about finances versus survival mode. What are some of the strategies, tactics that you do when you're dealing with, folks that are in real life situations and we're talking about saving money or, having to take time out to do some of these things that we're talking about? What do you do? What are some strategies?
So I'll be honest, I don't even know if it's really the professional strategy. It's more of a having intersectional identities that belong in marginalized communities, right? Person of color, woman, small business owner, entrepreneur. There's so many layers to that. But I think first, changing the mindset, especially of our people, African American people, where generationally, typically, we are paycheck to paycheck, right? We don't know the value of saving. And so we think that if we go without this, it's not going to help in the long run. So I think to show people that little changes, because honestly, to me, that's one of the generational curses that we talk about, right? We don't do life insurance and stuff. We may have life insurance if our employer offers it for us, but who's to say we don't get let go or laid off, have a heart attack, die, and then because it was after, we don't have life insurance, our families are doing GoFundMes and everything for our final arrangements. I think it's making small changes, and we have to do that across generations, because a lot of times I have a 32 and a 30-year-old daughter, right? And as much as I think they don't listen to me, they do, right? So if I say something, it's they may like, oh, Mom, like whatever, we're not
I know that
you.
feeling.
But it does. They do listen to it, right? Mm-hmm. So I ended up being a single mother, and I'm gonna tie this all together. My youngest daughter, who is now a single mother, told me, she said in a conversation, she said, we never saw you struggle. Because I was telling them, I'm like, the one Christmas, like I worked in the bank at the daytime 3 nights a week. I worked at, at a gas station counting cigarettes and stocking stuff because I needed to be Santa Claus, right? And it was like it wasn't working for me to do all this by myself, right? Newly single. And she's like, we went to gymnastics. We went to band camp. She's like, I think if you would have let us see you struggle, when I have bad days, it wouldn't have been as heartbreaking for me as like, you're never going to be a Lisa. You're never going to be like, and I'm like, girl, like what? Like, of course, like, my struggle is not everybody's struggle, but definitely had times where the paychecks were a little tight and things like that. So I try to tell her, like, save this much. If you're used to going to Starbucks on her way to work, you spend $7 every day at Starbucks. Mm-hmm. Save, like, go to Starbucks twice a week. Get you a coffee machine at home or drink water because it's good for you, and put that money aside. And so we do. And she, once they see it grow, and it's like, okay, well, now we need to go to the, to the investment people. You need to either do it like this, go long term, but when they can see it, and it's so hard to see it, especially now, when you can swipe things, it's really hard to know how soon it's coming out. Back in our days, we had cash. If you didn't have the cash in your wallet, you didn't have the money. Right now, we swipe. Banks are nice to say, we'll just charge you this fee, but we'll let you overdraw, and that puts them further in it. So I think that making the choices of really talk to someone and really commit to it. Like, it's not going to be easy, but your struggle right now, it's not going to be too much harder than what you are doing right now. But people have to see tangible things. They have to see, like, okay, I'm able to do this. Okay, now I can do this. The whole wait till your income tax check comes so you can buy things. Like, we can't just
tax season's right around the corner.
Yeah, we can't be spenders in February and March. Like, if you would have taken some of that, take it from somebody who owes, like, when you take some of that and invest it, and then you're living off of, you have residual income and things, but you have to show them, and they don't trust everybody to show them, because Big Mama can't show them that because she didn't do that.
Right. And Lisa, so when it comes to things like that in that situation, so when you take certain people that are, I would say, pre-exposed to certain lifestyles where they never have to worry about anything or they never have to see their parents struggle, do you think that sets them back when it comes to adulthood when they need to take on their own personal finances?
I think it can. It depends on what their mindset is. If they've learned healthy, financial practices. My father had me investing in Procter & Gamble when I was 16 years old. Because honestly, he was a blunt man from Selma, Alabama. He was like, they do feminine products. Y'all always gonna need them. Like, start with it. And I was sitting there like, that's stupid. But
not going anywhere.
That was his way. Like, if you're gonna have a job and we're gonna have to, then you need to put some of your money aside because we're not gonna do this for you forever. He also was the same one that said, we will not co-sign for you anything. If you won't pay those people, you won't pay us. And so we're not going into debt for you once you get grown. And I think we don't have enough of that. Maybe we don't know how to do that now because generationally we so do other things. But I feel as if kids are either going to go to what they know, young people, or they're going to go so far away to what they don't know. And a lot of times in certain communities, you need to push them away from what they don't know, right? Because they know how to struggle. They know the struggle is real. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you just touched on a few different things. We talk about.
Off on tangent.
Yeah, well, no, great stuff because you touched on numerous things that we've talked about on the show all the time, which is understanding needs and wants. When you mentioned the Starbucks, I use that all the time. Like when I feel like I don't have the money, I'm cutting back on the things that I want, not that I need. But a lot of times, you're in an impoverished community or you don't have the money. We're always saying, well, where do I have it? We all have things we can cut back on. We may not want to, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or Starbucks, whatever it may be, understanding that and then coming to the mindset, I want to change my financial situation. I'm going to have to cut back on these.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You do. You have to sacrifice for,
If you want to change your situation, you have to change your mindset and you have to be willing to sacrifice if you want to change your financial situation.
But I think the story's not told enough that even people who seem well-to-do sacrifice for their financial situation, right? You may not see it, but if they want more, they're cutting back on things or reeling in on things.
So when I use my personal example, I'm not financially struggling by any means.
Right.
But when I say I live paycheck to paycheck, I put money aside and I don't touch that. So
don't
if I need to
touch
cut
it.
back, I stop getting Starbucks before I start touching
you
that.
start, right.
The tax return is one I use all the time. I used to be in the cell phone business prior to banking, and man, tax time comes and the whole family's getting brand new phones. Do you need the new iPhone 15, 16, whatever's out now when that comes, or do you want to save that so then when bills come or Christmas comes next year, you're not still borrowing, you're getting in debt for that. You actually have the money from tax time to pay for that. So now the next year comes, right? You got to cut back somewhere and start somewhere. And the needs and the wants is something you have to understand.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to education.
It does.
And when we're talking about cultures, like she said, you could be a well-to-do family. If you're not taught certain things when you were talking about needs and wants and finances, and we know, you can speak to the black community, there's certain things, A, that we weren't taught, B, a trust level that was legitimate.
Yeah.
You know, our parents, there was things, you talk about going to a bank, we know the systemic things that used to take place. So therefore, no, the bank wasn't the safest place. That's why you have coffee
There's a lack of
cups and
trust,
mattresses.
right?
That's exactly it. So, I mean, that's there. So I know Terrence, when he brought up, you know, his point, it's not about seeing somebody struggle. It's really just about where you at with that education.
It is.
When you, as a family.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as education comes into that aspect, I know there are some people out there that have had the opportunity to get that knowledge, to be educated about their finances so that they can be financially strong in the future, and they still decide to negate everything that they've been taught. So I guess that ties back into the mindset as well, because if somebody gives you the tools and resources in your life so that you can be successful, and you actively decide not to engage those tools to be successful, you're never going to have a new mindset. You will be stuck in that same mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to look into the opportunities, right? Like there's so many opportunities for us to educate before people get to college, right? Like what about high schools? What about community organizations? What about financial planning? Like I know that the JA is doing some great stuff right now. But what about other organizations too? That because when you look at JA, is it diverse, right? Are some students getting it? Are all students getting it, right? Like, go to some organizations, partner with the church youth groups, right? Like, you know, do something different. If you want a different result, you're going to have to approach it differently.
Even JA is what, once a month or whatever.
Well, once a year.
Once a year,
So
you know.
I volunteer for JA,
Okay.
personally for my kids, and then also on behalf of my employer. We go to Fairfield Elementary, which we're getting ready to do here in a couple months too. So, but yeah, it's great, but it's one day a year throughout school.
Yeah, that's JA for a day.
JA in a day. Yeah.
But they've got it where, the
Yep.
month. So, but either way, I don't know.
But with what you mentioned about college, right? And you two can probably speak to this as well, is, you know, sitting in, you know, they're talking to parents who bring their kids in when they're going off to college for the first time, right, to open their first bank account, right? It was always like, you're getting ready to send them off in the world by themselves, and this is their first bank account. No one's ever helped them, taught them, done anything, right? You can open an account for somebody at 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
You know, open the account early. You're on the account with them. Teach them how to manage money. Teach them how to spend money responsibly, right? Do that when they're young before you send them off in the world to try and figure this out on their own.
And we all have, you know, whether it's our professional obligation or just a personal one with integrity. I've worked in higher ed for a while now. I see students all the time signing for, you know, financial aid packages. And it's like, did someone tell you you were getting $2,000 worth of aid and the tuition is $15,000? Like, do you know? But they signed this, like, I got a sub loan and I got an unsub loan
Without
and I got
understanding it.
this. And it's like, okay, but now you've not done great your first semester, but we're going to give you another chance. Like the government, they're going to give you your another chance. But now you're not doing well. Now you walk away. Do you understand that those loans are due? I mean, up until 2020, loans were due 6 months later. Now you're trying to do whatever your hustle is, and the government is looking for you. So when anybody puts in your Social Security number, your first job, the government's coming to get their money, and they don't know. You know, so you want to be upset, but it's like they don't know. And when you have multiple students coming in signing award packets, do you honestly take the time to tell everybody this is what this is going to mean? These are we don't, right?
And if I'm being completely honest in that aspect, being in college myself, there have been several instances where they have tried to give me financial aid, even though my college is paid for 100% through my employer. A lot of people that I've personally sat with have absolutely no idea what they're signing up for. They don't know the ins and out of it. They don't understand that they have to pay this back and that they're paying interest on top of it. And I feel like if they had the chance to actually be educated on what they're actually signing up for, half of the people wouldn't sign up for it.
Yeah. How many people they get full rides, right? Like they're at a community college, they get full rides, and then they take out these sub loans so I got to get a car, I got to get a new computer, I want to go on spring break. And it's like, do you realize what that spring break, that $500 trip to the Bahamas just cost you, like, down the road? You may never ever get to the Bahamas again if you, right? And it's because money's so scarce till we feel like if you're giving it to me now, I'm going to live in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to live in the moment.
Yeah. Lisa, unfortunately, we're out of time today.
Yes, of
Told you
course.
that time would go by fast because this is definitely a topic we could talk about,
need a
all
part
day
two,
long.
right? We
Well,
need
that's
part
what I
two.
just getting ready to say, right? You can't change a mindset in a day,
Right.
Right. But the first step is understanding
Yes.
that the way you think is a mindset, and if you want something different, then be willing to change it, and then seek help on how you can change it,
Yes.
right? So, thank you again for being on the show. I do want to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know maybe where to find you or
Sure.
your consulting company.
Sure, either one. I think the easiest place to Google, because my website was supposed to be relaunched January 1st, but other people needed self-care too. So shout out to my behind-the-scenes people. But go to Indiana Tech's website, or you can email me at ldgivan@indianatech.edu, and I will reply.
Awesome.
I'll connect.
Great. Well, thank you for being on the show once again. Hopefully, we can have you back for a part two because, like I said, it's
No,
something we can
thank
talk
you.
about
Great.
all day long. But once again, mindset, the power of the mindset, as Lisa's shirt says, mindset is everything. But the first step is understanding that the way you're thinking, the situation you're in is all due to your mindset. If you want something different, you got to be willing to change your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, I believe, on the 24th. We're doing it the financial show every other week. So January 24th, same time, 8:30. So we'll see you then. Until then, our neutral voices. Peace.